Okay, so we're going to start with pagination, and the first thing we're going to do is set up what's referred to as offset pagination. And if we just open up the users repository, and just to give a quick example of what I'm about to demonstrate, where we've got our get members async, the idea of this is that we use skip and take operators. So if we wanted, let's say for example, we had a page size of 5 and we wanted to get the second page, then we would say, for example, we would use take 5 as that is the page size. But if we were on the second page, then we would use skip, and we would skip 5 results to get the next 5 results. And that's pretty much how pagination works with offset pagination. But we won't implement it like this, of course. We're going to set up a helper class to make this easy to use. And inside Solution Explorer, let's use the helpers folder. And we'll right click, say add new file. That's going to be a class, and we're going to call it a paged list. And inside here, let's give it the correct namespace of helpers. And the idea of this is we're going to be able to use this for any of our entities. So we're going to make it generic. And when we make something generic, we specify T, which acts as a placeholder, and we can swap it for another type. So, for example, our page list at the moment is going to be returning a list of member DTO. But in order to use it for other objects, then we can specify a generic class of T, and when it comes to using this, when we use a new paged class, we say new paged, or paged list, I should say, and then we specify the type of thing that we're going to use it for, and we would say member DTO here, and then the T would effectively be swapped with the member DTO. That's just a very brief intro to C# generics. So we can use one class and have type safety in the class when we use it, and we use generics for that purpose. And we're going to derive from the list class in C#, and this will give us access to all of the list functionality, but we're effectively going to add to it by adding paging functionality. And inside here, we're going to create a constructor, and we're going to take as a parameter, we're going to take an IEnumerable of type T and call it items. We'll have an int for the count, we'll have an int for the page number, and an int for the page size. So when we create a new instance of list class, we call a constructor and provide these as the parameters. And we'll also add properties to this as well. We're going to have an int for the current page. We'll have a prop of int for the total pages. We'll have a prop of an int for the page size. And we'll have another prop of int for the total count. And based on the information that we're taking as the parameters here, we can work out what these different properties should be set to. So the current page, for example, we're going to pass that in as a parameter, and that's going to be equal to the page number. The total pages we can calculate based on the total count, which is going to be stored and passed as a parameter there, and dividing that by the page size effectively. So the total pages is going to equal int, and then we'll use math.ceiling, and we'll specify count, and then divide that by, and we need to use double here, and page size. So for example, if the total count of results that we had was, let's say, 12, and we had a page size of 5, then that would be 12 divided by 5, which would give us something like 2.3 something. And then we would use math ceiling, which would effectively round that result up to 3. So that would give us 3 pages, which would be correct. So if we've got 12 results, our page size is 5, then we'd expect to have 3 pages, 2 pages of 5 results and 1 page of 2 results. The page size we'll set to the page size we're passing in as a parameter, and the total count we'll set to count. And then to our paged list, because we are deriving from the list, then we can use list functionality in here, and we're going to use the add range, which is a function available on the list, and we can add the elements of the specified collection to the end of the list. So we're going to say add range and pass in the items. So when we do get a new page list, we're going to have these properties available inside it, as well as, for the example we're going to look at, the list of members that we get back from our database. Now, in order to use this, we're also going to create a static method inside here. So just below the total count property, and let's move this up, we'll say public static async task, and we're going to return effectively a paged list from here of type T, and we'll give it a name of create async, and this is going to take an iQueryable of type T, and this is going to be the source. So when we're using a pagination, we're effectively deferring the execution of the request. So we're going to get this from our repository. When we're in our repository, we build up a query. So before we execute the query with toListAsync, then what's going on here is effectively a query to our database, but we don't execute it until we use a toListAsync, for example. So we're going to pass through a queryable. So before it's executed to the database, we're going to use that, and that will effectively be our query. And then we'll have the int of the page number and the int of the page size. And let's flesh this out, and let's just bring this down as I'm going off the edge. So we need two queries effectively for this. We need to get a count of the number of items available for the query in our database before pagination has taken place. And we have to use two queries for this functionality. There's no way around it. So I'm going to say var count equals await, and we're going to say source and count async. Now this is happening before pagination. So in our case, let's say we've got 12 members in our database and we've got a page size of 5, then we would expect that count async to be returning 12. That's how many items I'm saying are in our database, so that's what we'd expect to see coming back for the count number. Whereas if we waited until after pagination, that number would be 5. And then we need to get hold of our items. So I'll say var items, whatever they may be, and it's going to be members in the first example. We're going to say await source, and then we're going to use the skip operator, and then we need to work out how many we want to get. How many do we need to skip? Well, we need to know the page number and the page size to work out how many to skip. So in parentheses and more parentheses, we're going to say page number minus 1, and we're going to multiply this by the page size. And then we're going to take, and we're going to say the page size, that's how many we want to take, and then we're going to use toListAsync so that we execute the query. So the parentheses is important here due to maths and its desire for consistency to always carry out multiplications first. We want the page number minus 1 to be calculated first, and we achieve that by using parentheses, and then we want it to be calculated or multiplied by the page size. So let's stick with the example of we've got 12 members in our database, we've got a page size of 5, and if we're requesting the first page, then that would be page number 1. So for the first page, we want page number to effectively, we want to skip 0 for the first page, and then take 5. So if our page number is 1, then we use page number minus 1, which is 0, times by the page size, that would be 0, and then we're going to take 5, so we get the first 5 results. And then when we're on page number 2, page number minus 1 is going to equal 1. We multiply that by the page size, which is 5, so we skip 5, and then we take 5 to get the next 5 results. So that's the system we're using here, and then we can return from this a new paged list, and we can pass in the items, the counts, the page number, and the page size. And be careful with these parameters, because when we use parentheses, there's a very specific order they have to be used in. And the way that we specified them in our constructor, because we're creating a new instance of the page list class, then we've got the items as the first property, the count as the second, page number as the third, and the page size as the fourth. And that matches exactly what's going on when I create a new instance of this. So that's step number one, which is creating this new class. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at other helper classes that we need to create to get this functionality to work.